Welcome back to Gold Derby. I'm Christopher Rosen. I'm joined by Joyce. Joyce, for the last time here, this is a season finale. It's a wonderful time for Oscar.
And we're closing with Billy again.
We're closing with Billy again. We went a completely circuitous and unorganized route.
But it's still the last year of the decade.
But we saved the last year of the decade movies of 1999 for our final look at 90s Oscars ceremonies. What a year 99 in film was.
The best year. The best year in general. I love 1999. Like, great year in film, great year in TV, music, life, really, even with like the Y2K angst.
Really was a great time. Brian Raftery wrote a great book about it called 1999 Best Movie Year Ever.
That was what was that, the EW cover?
I don't even remember. Let me see.
It was like about like 1999. It was like the best.
I have to Google. You can't even. I mean, EW's archives are just.
I know. R.I.P. EW.
Just wrecked. It was the year that changed movies.
Exactly.
From The Matrix and The Blair Witch Project to American Beauty and The Sixth Sense, the last year of the millennium was transformative in Hollywood. As if you're watching this,
is that the cover line? That's very long.
That was the subhead on this. Okay. There's no. You can't even find the covers anymore, Joyce. They don't even exist. The site
you
is.
can probably order it off of like Amazon.
Yeah, maybe on eBay. I'll look later. We can look it up.
Yeah.
A fantastic year. We'll get to the Oscars later. We'll do 99 year, our final time in the 90s in film. What a sad. When we come back and do this again, we'll do different decade, I guess. But 99 in film.
I guess we're just gonna redo the 90s.
We could do this again. I would do the 90s again. I have so many more thoughts.
Like subsects of the 90s.
Yeah.
Like 90s kids movies.
Sure.
Mighty Ducks, obviously.
Love that. We'll go through the top grossing year films of the year, which doesn't even touch on, like we said, this is a transformative year for film. But the top grossing movie was to the delight of that Oscars ABC executive who was down on the 1999 Oscar ceremony because of how the ratings were not super high. Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, was the top grossing movie of the 1999 year.
And that executive was referenced in Inside Oscar 2.
He was. Joyce, I have some good news for you. I decided, since this is our last one, I would go out with a bang, and I actually read the chapter of Inside Oscar 2.
I know you sent me a screen grab.
I have so many screen grabs on this phone that I'm just going to be reading off. It's going to blow your mind. I was able to put words. I was able to put my eyes onto text and read. Jeez, what
was that experience like?
It was pretty great. I guess this is why people like reading things. It was so informative.
And you learn information.
Yeah.
In the process.
Really great. I loved it so much. But Star Wars Episode 1, Phantom Menace, top grossing movie of the year. I'll give you quickly on Star Wars. I don't know if you're a Star Wars person, Joyce.
I'm not big on Star Wars much.
So I was. Now, I saw this movie about 4 times in the movie theater, and I had to convince myself after each time that it was good. And I think that's what a
lot of people did.
Maybe about the 3rd time, I was like, this sucks. And it's not good.
And you still saw it a 4th time.
Yeah, got to make sure it's good. I don't think it's hard. It's hard now to explain, I think, to people who weren't alive or like caring. But like the idea that they were doing prequels to Star Wars was so cool. And like it was talked about for so long. And there was such a huge gap between Return of the Jedi, which is 83, to Phantom Menace, which is 99. I was like, used to be a website called Corona Coming Attractions. Do you remember that website?
Yes, I remember Corona.
Used to read it all the time. And Phantom Menace was like, holy cow, this is going to be great. And this was before, obviously now prequels and like all these different things are so pat, right? Like, it's like, this is how you tell stories up to and including Lightyear as a movie, right? Like the toy. But it was like cool to imagine, because like a lot of the stuff in Star Wars that was we were so naive, because obviously now I think it's destructive as creative. But at the time when it was like, oh, Obi-Wan talking about the Clone Wars with Luke, man, we're going to get to see that and like get to see all this different stuff. And it's going to be so cool. And then George Lucas was like, this is going to be about taxation of trade routes with a lot of super problematic aliens for some reason, where they're talking with these offensive accents. And then we're going to build the whole movie around a child actor who is bad.
Mm-hmm. And also you have Jar Jar Binks.
All of it was rough. Just everyone was so stiff. Not a great experience, though a great John Williams score. And actually, one of the reasons I think I kept going back to Phantom Menace, and I think if you do watch it now, it's definitely like, to me, it's the best of these prequels, though I don't even know if people think that now. I don't actually know what the current Star Wars discourse is around the prequels. It seems like they actually got a renaissance because a lot of people who
people
grew
hate
up with them. Right. A lot of people who grew up with them as kids, like, oh, those are the Star Wars movies that I like, right? Like it's like a kid movie, basically. But I remember the ending of Phantom Menace is really cool. Like the way George Lucas crosscuts between like all the different action scenes, and there's the Darth Maul fight, and Obi-Wan is great, and Ewan McGregor's still doing Obi-Wan now. Anyway, Star Wars #1 at the box office. Did you see it in the theater?
I did not see any of them in the theater, any of the prequel trilogies in the theater. Again, like I don't really care. And I've talked about this before when there's like such a large gap from like the last movie. I think we were talking about this with The Godfather.
Yeah.
Like between the most recent film and then the new film, I'm just like, I don't know if I need this. And like I'm fine with like what we already had. Like I feel like it's kind of, especially now with the Star Wars, all these Star Wars shows like Obi-Wan and everything.
Right.
It's like a cash grab, really.
Now it is, yeah. But at the time it was a novelty. I mean, it was not like
and
that.
then it's, yeah. So my biggest recollection of Phantom Menace is so Natalie Portman, like us, from Long Island.
Yes.
She went to Syosset High School.
Uh-huh.
And so I was in 8th grade in the spring of 99. So I was about to graduate middle school and then go into high school in the fall. So I wasn't in high school yet, but there was like all the buzz in the school was that a senior from my high school was going to her prom at Syosset.
Wow.
And this was, like Phantom Menace came out in late May, like prom was like in June or whatever. And that was just all the buzz. Like that's what everyone was talking about, that like this guy, I don't even know his name, but he was going to Natalie Portman's prom, the star of Star Wars.
Phantom Menace. Wow.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Mhm.
#2 movie at the box office. I saw all of these in the theater. Also, this was I graduated in 2000, so this was my senior year, was 99. And I have stories for all of these that I will not bore you with completely, but I have some other ones that I like mentally took note of. But I saw all these in the theater and was super excited to see them. So this is great. 99 was a prime movie going year for me and my pals. Sixth Sense, saw it in the theater. So that was summer before senior year, obviously. But anyway.
I didn't see that in the theater, but I knew the twist.
So I saw it in theater, and I saw with one of my good friends, Chris, who I'm still friends with, and I remember leaning over to him and being like, "He's dead." I called it. Like it was
What
after.
gave it away?
I did. I was like, "Oh man, he's not alive." I called it after the anniversary scene. Like when he goes out, he was clearly not there. I just felt like that was like a giveaway. We just spoiled it. The Sixth Sense, he's dead the whole time. I feel like the statute of limitations on spoilers.
23 years. It's fine.
Pretty gone. Love that movie. Thought it was a great movie. Haven't seen it in a long time, but I remember thinking it was really good.
Yeah.
Toy Story 2 was not a big fan of, but obviously #3 highest grossing movie of the year.
I don't really remember much from the first 2 Toy Stories.
Yeah.
I saw them. Remember the third one vividly. I saw
the third one's traumatic.
Again, it should have just ended with the third one.
Yeah.
Fourth one, unnecessary. I saw that in the theater. It was fine. Yeah.
Forky was in the fourth one.
Yes, Forky.
#4 movie was The Matrix. Saw this in the theater. Absolutely loved it. This was an actual word of mouth sensation, right?
Mm-hmm.
I remember the trailers were great because I think I saw it on opening weekend, and it was like people were amped to see it, and then it was like, holy shit, this rules. And it still rules. I watched it again before Matrix Resurrections, which was not very good. But The Matrix is amazing.
Have to go back to that.
Unbelievable movie.
Don't have to do more.
Completely holds up. And probably I will mention it many times when we're doing our extra Oscar picks here, because I think it could have gotten a few more nominations. It obviously went 4 for 4, I believe.
It went 4 for 4. One of the clean sweeps without winning Best Picture.
Right. But
or even
really
being nominated for Best Picture.
Really probably should have been. It's a fantastic movie. The Tarzan Disney movie, #5 at the box office. Never saw Tarzan.
I can't even tell you if I've seen it, honestly. I do not remember I've seen this movie, but this was at when the Disney Renaissance era was dying out, really.
Yeah, but the You'll Be in My Heart wins Oscars here. And we'll talk about that because I read a lot on Inside Oscar about Trey Parker and Matt Stone.
I mean, you don't remember that when it was happening? When they were
No, honestly, I don't.
They were gonna,
it's so funny, but yeah. Tarzan was 5. The Mummy was 6. Saw this in the theater. Totally forgettable, but seemingly like a lot of fun. It was like the big May kickoff movie.
It was fine. This was my introduction to Rachel Weisz.
Same. Exactly. Notting Hill was 7. Great
Notting
Julia.
Hill.
Great Julia performance. Great Julia movie with Hugh Grant. The World Is Not Enough, which is a very, very mediocre Bond movie, is 8.
I saw that in the theater.
Number 9 is our Best Picture winner, American Beauty, which was a absolute phenomenon. And I actually think the Inside Oscar kind of short shrifts how big it was. And then number 10 was Austin Powers 2, which was also a phenomenon. I remember seeing that the night it opened on Thursday. I think we went Thursday night. They did screen. This was, again, a novelty at the time, but they did like Thursday night screenings for this. And it was the night of the MTV Movie Awards, I believe. It opened like June 12th.
June, yeah.
And I remember going and seeing it. Austin Powers, the original, was at the time you were able to do this. It came out, I think, in the spring of 97 and was not very well attended or noticed. I think it made like 50 million or whatever it was. And then everyone watched it and it became like an absolute phenomenon and quoted a million times. So the sequel was just like, holy cow, we got to see this right away. And it was fine. I remember thinking it wasn't as funny as the first one, but had a lot of this was the fat bastard one, I believe, is the main character or main thing.
I saw this in theater. It was fine. I didn't see the first one in theater, like most people didn't. I saw Goldmember, the third one, in the theater.
Yikes.
I saw that, I know. And that was also when my family and I were on vacation in Massachusetts. So we saw it. That was like one of our
outings
activities. We saw Goldmember. Yeah.
You know, I thought of Goldmember this week because Tom Hanks actually plays Goldmember in Elvis, as it turns out. I didn't know that. American Beauty, Joyce. So this was a big movie, obviously. Now it's fraught and canceled probably. And I watched it again last night so we could talk about this. But I will just say before we go through the rest of the year movies, and we'll talk about American Beauty a ton, I'm sure, during this. This was I believe it premiered at TIFF this year in 99. But it was coming out, I think it came out September 15th or September 17th.
It came out in September.
And the trailer was great. And we were very, at the time, obviously, very much fans of Kevin Spacey, which is like, again, not what you want, I guess, now. But he was obviously off of Usual Suspects, like very well liked from SNL and all these different things. The trailer for this movie ruled. It had a lot of good elements. And I remember going to see it in Lincoln Square on opening weekend with my friend, and it was sold out. And I was like, we're not going back. This was the time you had to actually go to the theater or like call Movie Phone to buy tickets. Not even, you couldn't even, you would not use online.
You can use an app or anything. No cell phones.
No.
Really.
And the online existed, but not for movie ticketing, or at least not we were aware of. So we got to Lincoln Square on like a Friday night or Saturday night, and it was sold out. And I was like, F this, we're going to sneak in. And we bought tickets for the Love of the Game, which was the big movie that came out that weekend. Sam Raimi and Kevin Costner, right? And just snuck in to see American Beauty. And I had the ticket. I probably still have it in my parents' house for so long from For Love of the Game. And I never saw For Love of the Game, but I saw American Beauty and I was like,
see that movie now.
This rules. I was so excited about American Beauty. I thought it was so great. It really, it was a great experience, a film experience. And it was no kidding. It made so much money. I feel like it did obviously strike a major chord with audiences. And then Austin Powers like 10. So those are the box office movies, Joyce. But then there's dozens of movies here that were just significant movies. So many.
It's the best year of the decade.
I can't imagine reading all of them, but I'll just start with all of them, I guess. We've talked about 10. I would say I'll just run through. I'll briefly just shout out a bunch. Varsity Blues.
Love Varsity Blues. And so the good thing about this year is that there are like movies I love from like basically every month of the year when it was released. So Varsity Blues came out in January.
Yes.
And this was also a great time if you were a Dawson's Creek fan, like I was, because Dawson's Creek had premiered a year before, and like all the actors on the show were just getting booked left and right for parts. So obviously James Van Der Beek, I Don't Want Your Life.
Amazing movie. Jon Voight, probably, I would argue, apologies to Coming Home and whatever he does now on social media, but this is his best performance. Oop-de-oop, oop-de-fucking-oop. So it's great.
Yeah, right. And then R.I.P. Paul Walker, also a big year for Paul Walker, because in late January, She's All That. Great year for teen movies.
So I was thinking, like looking at this when I was writing down literally 45 to 50 movies here as alternate movies and just exciting movies. The thing that makes this year so strong, and I was like, because I was thinking like 97 is pretty great year, right? We talked about that, like Titanic and Good Will Hunting and LA Confidential and Boogie Nights and all these all-time classic movies. But the thing that makes 99, I think, so special is that it is like all these different genres that are like peak examples of the genres, right? So like all these great teen movies, you have all these like auteur, like young auteur movies like Three Kings or Fight Club or all these different things
John
later.
Malkovich.
Being John Malkovich, you have like these blockbuster movies like The Matrix and I mean Notting Hill, I would say is like kind of like big star movies, I guess, or whatever you want to say.
Yeah, like Julia was back in her peak. I mean, I guess it, you know, she returned with My Best Friend's Wedding, but she had Notting Hill. She opened the summer with Notting Hill in May, and then in July she came back
with Runaway Bride.
It
just was like every version, every item or every like on a checklist of things that like people like about movies. It was like I felt like knocked off this year from cult, like almost immediate cult favorites. So like here's another one I wrote down, Office Space. That was an awesome flop, but it was almost like immediately.
So many flops that are cult classics. Like one of my faves, Drop Dead Gorgeous.
But they all like, tell me if you agree with it. I felt like they all were cult classics immediately. Like I saw Office Space in the theater. I was one of the few people who actually saw it in the theater.
But I think the difference is like, because without now we have social media and the internet and everyone's super online. Like you just, back then it's like you were like in your bubble. So like if you saw it with your group, like you know that like it's beloved with your group, but it's not apparent like to a wider audience yet until like, you know, people start writing about it or something,
right?
You know,
The Office Space, we were quoting immediately, not can't say I've been missing it, Bob. Looks like you've been missing a lot of work. Can't say
I haven't seen it in a while. I should rewatch it.
We'll go back to Office Space, because actually like watching Office Space and thinking of Office Space and watching American Beauty last night, having actually realizing what I liked about those movies at the time. And like, I think it is like an age thing, but other ones I wrote down, 10 Things I Hate About You, absolute classic.
10 Things I Hate About You is my favorite teen
so good
comedy. So it came out the same day as The Matrix on March 31st, 1999. And every March 31st, I watched 10 Things I Hate About You. Perfect length, 90 minutes. Obviously, star-making performance by Heath Ledger, R.I.P.
Unbelievable.
Also Julia Stiles. I quote it all the time. You know, I always say I'm whelmed, because I think that should be a word.
I love this is another, again, I think nowadays maybe a young person is like, oh, I love all these teen movies, but I'm like, this is like every one of the people in this movie is like Joseph Gordon-Levitt is like a, you know, like a minor, or like not a minor character, but he's like the third or fourth lead. David Krumholtz is his friend. Just hilarious, unbelievable.
Then Andrew Keegan draws the dick on his face.
I have a dick on my face, don't I? Great line reading, just all time hilarious.
And then when like Keith asked him like, what is with this chick? She had beer filled with nibbles or something.
So good. Great music, obviously. Hypnotized.
And I was a huge Alex Mack fan in the 90s, so I was very excited to see Larissa Oleynik in this. And she was also in the Babysitters Club in 95. So
great soundtrack. Hypnotized, Can't Take My Eyes Off You, wonderful. Who's the girl? Who's the cover band at Letters to Cleo, right? Isn't that at the end?
Yeah, Letters to Cleo, who he's called in a favor to get to perform at their prom. So
wonderful movie.
That school, a real high school too, Padua.
Mm-hmm.
Like it looks like a haunted mansion.
It's wonderful. I love that movie so much. Actually, I think of all these, it maybe is my favorite too. I wrote down Go was another one I really loved. Saw that in the theater. Great movie. Sarah Polley, Ascendant, great Timothy Olyphant. Loved it. It was shameless Tarantino ripoff, but actually like obviously post Pulp Fiction, Tarantino ripoffs were like very prominent in movies, but by bending this towards more like a teen concept, I felt like it was like more fun, even though they're like 20 somethings, I guess.
Again, Katie Holmes, you know, Dawson's Creek. And then when did we talk about Teaching Mrs. Tingle? When was this? Oh, for Helen Mirren, when she got it, her SAG montage.
Yes.
We did not include Teaching Mrs. Tingle and
Never Been Kissed, which was fine.
Can I tell you my Never Been Kissed story?
Yes.
So this is in spring 2000, so a year after it came out, because this came out in April 99. Obviously, I saw it. And then, so in spring 2000, it was the end of my freshman year. And in English, we had to, I don't even remember the assignment, but we basically had to take some contemporary art and write about it. Okay. So my friend, she was obsessed with She's So High by Tal Bachman. Remember that jam?
Sure, of course.
99, yeah. So
great
she wrote
song.
about that. Yeah. I wrote about Never Been Kissed. Cannot tell you what I said. I don't even know if I have a copy of the paper anymore. It's probably in my parents' house, but I wrote about it. And then he gives our papers back, and I got an A, and on it he wrote, "See me after class." And I'm like, why? Isn't that usually when you do poorly? So I go see him. And then he was just like, this movie sounds so great. I've never heard of it before. And I was like, oh yeah, it came out last year. And he's like, I really want to see it. I was like, yeah, you should rent it or something. Yeah, it's good. And he's like, it sounds so interesting. It's like fascinating. He's like, okay. And I was like, okay. And that was it. And I have no idea if he ever saw it. I never followed up. He never told me, but yeah.
Pretty fun movie.
About Never Been Kissed.
Josie Grossi. Election, I saw on VHS. Great movie. Obviously, we'll talk about that, I think, a couple further here. But breakout for Reese Witherspoon. I saw it for Matthew Broderick also because of Ferris Bueller, and it was fun watching like Ferris Bueller grow up, basically. And that was like a pull, I think, for this, like having Matthew Broderick back in a school environment as an adult was like kind of,
but also a bad adult,
a disillusioned adult too. We mentioned a lot of those blockbusters. South Park was a major deal. Saw that in the theater. Absolutely hilarious. Could not believe what they were getting away with. And obviously an Oscar nominee. Wild Wild West saw total flop, disaster. Will Smith running aground from his streak. Here's one I saw in the theater that I did not like. And then I revisited a few years ago and I was like, oh man, this rules. Summer of Sam. So Spike Lee directing and just a massive Scorsesean, like just epic. And it's so good. So good. American Pie, sleeper hit, total blockbuster. Blair Witch Project, truly one of the scariest movies I've ever seen in the theater. Loved it so much. You see that one in the theater?
I saw it on TV eventually. It was fine. I wasn't a fan really.
I loved it so much. I think I saw it in Bayside. I remember driving home and actually being scared that somebody was in my car. Like it was so scary. It was just really, really scary movie. Eyes Wide Shut, saw in the theater, was left perplexed, let's say.
I didn't see that in the theater. I saw it on pay-per-view. Multiple times.
I haven't revisited it very much.
No, I haven't either. Again, I was like, okay, sure.
Deep Blue Sea, which I called Smart Sharks. Wonderful movie. Great twist when Samuel Jackson dies. Awesome movie. This is a lot of fun. Dick, saw that in the theater. Rewatched it a few years ago. Still pretty good. With Michelle Williams and Kirsten Dunst. Mentioned Sixth Sense, American Beauty. Three Kings, saw in the theater. Classic Clooney. Fighting with David O. Russell on the set. That was like a big narrative at the time.
I'm not a huge David O. Russell fan, but I do like this movie.
It's interesting. I am a big David O. Russell fan, but it is interesting to think how much he is not the same director as he like. So he did Three Kings. He did, I think after this was I Heart Huckabees, right? Was that his follow-up to this?
Yes. Well, it was also like 5 years later too, when he yells at Lily Tomlin.
Right. And those are very like different movies. Then he had a huge break because of like, he was in director jail basically. And like Mark Wahlberg brought him back for Fighter, which is a pretty straightforward mainstream movie that I actually really love, but it has some of his touches with like the loudness of the family. And then from The Fighter, he just did Silver Linings and American Hustle, both of which I really like, but both of which are nothing like Three Kings. I feel like they're just completely different filmmakers. I'm
not like into any of those movies. So, and then
Fight Club, incredible movie. Saw it in the theater, was immediately smitten. Loved it so much. Couldn't wait for it. Read the book for that. Actually read a book for this choice. Boys Don't Cry, Hilary Swank. Did not see that in the theater, but saw it on VHS.
Yeah, I saw it on TV. I think the movie is fine. Like she's better than a movie.
Yeah, I think that was always the idea. And obviously now it would be probably pretty fraught, but I think you probably have a trans actor in that role rather than Hilary Swank. But at the time, again, like what we were saying the other day about Philadelphia, it's a different time, let's say. Being John Malkovich, saw that in the theater. Lincoln Square again.
I really like Being John Malkovich. And just like the concept.
It was very fun. I have not revisited it in so long, though. I wonder if it holds up.
I saw it a couple years ago because it was on TV, but it was like already halfway through, so I just watched the last half. Yeah, it does.
Here, I wrote down literally 40 movies that we could just like. The Insider, which I know you love.
I love The Insider.
Great Michael Mann, Russell Crowe, awesome. Ascendant Russell Crowe, Al Pacino rules. Great movie. Christopher Plummer probably should got nominated. Dogma, which you cannot find, but I have the DVD still. But it's like completely out of print and totally. It was a huge deal at the time because it was very controversial, obviously from like a Catholicism standpoint, and it was like Kevin Smith doing a much different thing. I rewatched some of it recently. It actually it holds up. It's funny because like we talk about Matt and Ben, I feel like all the time, but they are like the co-leads of this, basically.
Yeah, I remember when it was coming out, and it was like Matt and Ben again, because
Together again. But when people talk about Matt and Ben together, they never talk about Dogma. That's because it doesn't exist, because it's not on streaming anywhere for whatever reason. I think because of the Weinsteins and the rights or whatever, it's just gone. So if you don't have the DVD, and the DVD is out of print, I think it's like $100 probably to get it on DVD or something. The Green Mile. So we're going to see a lot of these movies like this, where it's the director who had a big popular hit or at home hit coming back with a follow-up. So like Shawshank Redemption was not a blockbuster, but boy, oh boy, in 5 years between Shawshank and Green Mile, did that become a popular movie? It was on TV all the time. So the Green Mile was like, with Frank Darabont's follow-up, a major deal. And
I read the book. Did you read the book?
No. And also the movie's not very good. This was a Phantom Menace, like, let me convince myself it's good.
Well, I never tried to convince myself the movie was good. I didn't see it 4 times. I just saw it once.
I only saw it once too. It's not good.
It was fine. I wasn't, the book is better, let's say. I was also into The Bone Collector. I read the book for that.
I never read the book. That was a good movie. Denzel and Angelina Jolie.
Yeah. And also Queen Latifah as Denzel's nurse.
Mm-hmm. This one I loved. Any Given Sunday, legendary Pacino performance. Great Oliver Stone fun. Man on the Moon, which was just tedious.
He tried.
Everyone coming off another thing that was like more popular. Jim Carrey off the Truman Show snub of an Oscar, coming back to do a serious thing.
He got the Globe, okay.
Peter Weir, Milos Forman off of Larry Flint, doing another kind of like historical recent history drama. Man on the Moon, not that great. Talented Mr. Ripley, I loved.
I love Talented Mr. Ripley.
Remember, this is another one saw in the theater, and I remember it was packed on opening night whenever it opened wide, I guess, because I can't imagine. We saw this on like Long Island or whatever. And I remember the crowd was, let's say, homophobic, because they were just not into this. And I think they were not expecting Matt Damon's character to be gay, and were not responding well to it.
You're saying they did not read The Talented Mr. Ripley.
They certainly did not read it. And I don't remember the trailer, but I'm going to assume the trailer made it look more like a Hitchcockian romance, kind of like, not as much maybe made the trailer probably made it look more straight than it is, let's say, or heteronormative than it was. And it was not well received, and it made me sad, because I was like, this is a great movie. It was so good. But I think because it was off the success of Good Will Hunting, people were expecting like that kind of thing from Matt Damon, and it was not that.
This is a better performance from him than his performance in Good Will Hunting.
I think that maybe is true. I think they're both great though, but I think he should have got nominated here. Yeah. Magnolia, saw that in Westbury, Joyce.
Very long.
Love it. Saw it again recently. Saw it in Westbury on the day of the Music City Miracle. Remember that football game? The Buffalo Bills and the Tennessee
why did
Titans.
You see that day? Why didn't you watch the game?
I was in the car going to the game. I remember going to the movie, and it was like, we were going to see it on Saturday night. And I remember the game will be over or whatever. And I remember listening to it in the car on FAN, and then going to see Magnolia and being like, holy shit, that ruled. And then The Hurricane, which we'll talk about, is a pretty fraught movie, mostly forgotten to time, honestly. Norman Jewison and Denzel Washington as Reuben Carter. I knew the story of the hurricane from the Bob Dylan song, Hurricane.
Right. I just remember when all the controversy surrounding the movie as it happened. Very dramatic.
It was very, very much like
all of it, because it just completely impacted its Oscar campaign.
It completely destroyed the movie. I don't know. Honestly, I don't even know if the movie's any good. I have not seen the movie in literally since 1999. I haven't seen it
since it came out.
2000
and
probably.
I didn't see it when I saw it on TV, like probably on pay-per-view, like in 2000 at some point. So I already knew. So I'd already been aware of all the allegations of its inaccuracies and fabricated like elements in the film. So I remember watching and being like, okay, sure. But I don't know, like I wouldn't have nominated for a Best Picture, even if I didn't know about it or think, it's like a fictional tale or something. Like I don't think it's Best Picture material.
I don't either. And I think in the year when we're going through this 99 year, it's like, it's a footnote on the year rather than like a major player, I would say. Because there are multiple movies we've just mentioned who I would have said could have been Best Picture nominees before The Hurricane, certainly. Any other ones, Joyce, that I did not mention? I just mentioned like 45 movies, like I said.
I saw Broke Down Palace in the theater.
Nice. Claire Danes and Kate Beckinsale.
Yeah, and yes. So, but basically, the drama behind the movie is a lot more interesting than the movie itself because Claire Danes made derogatory remarks about Manila where they
Interesting.
filmed.
I don't
And
remember this at all.
yeah, so uh, the Philippine government got very upset with her and banned her and her films.
Hmm.
So I don't know if that's still in place, but that's what happened at that time.
So they're not getting a lot of homeland there, I guess.
Probably not.
Any other ones?
Um, let's see. Oh, Drive Me Crazy, another not one of the better teen movies. That one had Melissa Joan Hart and Adrian Grenier.
Did I mention yeah, I saw that one at home. I did not see that one.
I did not see this one in theater. It came out in the fall, but this was when they had Britney Spears remix Crazy.
Yes. Great song.
Yeah, great song. I do prefer the remix version to
Same.
the original Crazy version on her album. So
Absolutely the correct take.
yes. Idle Hands with my fave Devon Sawa.
So at the time, this is 1999, spring of 99. So I'm a junior in college, and we could do internships. And I interned briefly at Sony Pictures as like in the publicity department. And I was just like, I want to intern there. And it was a much different time again. I don't think you could get these kind of things now, but I was just like, I want to intern here. And I was like, great. You can intern here basically. And it was a lot of like clipping press for them. So going through literal newspapers and clipping out like articles. Idle Hands is one of the few movies. This was a great time for Sony actually in Columbia, because I didn't mention this one too. Cruel Intentions came out that spring as well.
Yeah, Cruel Intentions, Bittersweet Symphony at the end.
Amazing. Cruel Intentions absolutely holds up. I've watched it recently. It's so good. Great movie. But Idle Hands is not a good movie. But I remember watching it at the Sony screening room, which I don't know if it still exists on Madison Avenue.
I've been to their main office one.
So they moved, obviously. Now I think they're downtown. They're more like towards Madison Square Park, I believe, right?
Yeah, it's like by like 28th.
But it used to be up by like 50, whatever. This is 25, 30 years ago. And I remember going in the screening room there to see Idle Hands. They let me go to see one of the screenings or whatever. And they had, at the top of that screening room, there were like two like balcony seats, almost like bigger seats, like in the back. I remember Peter Travers was sitting in one of them, and I was like, wow, that's Peter Travers. He's reviewing Idle Hands, and I'm seeing it right now. And when he reviews it, he will have seen the same Idle Hands that I saw. It was very
as if they're going to change the final.
Well, no, just the fact that I am experiencing at the same moment as he is, and he's reviewing it. Idle Hands.
Now you go to a billion screenings, and it's just like, who cares?
And I'm like, get the hell out of here! I don't need to see these people. Put a mask on so I don't have to see anybody's face. Analyze this. We saw the birth of this at the Oscars a few years ago when we were doing this. I forget which one it was, but De Niro, Billy doing a De Niro impression, I think, for Awakening.
Yeah, when he was when De Niro was about to present the Best Picture clip.
For Awakenings, it was that year.
Not for Awakenings. No, did they give him Dances with Wolves? They gave him something that was not The Godfather Part 3 or Awakening.
It was Dance with the Wolves. You're right. That's funny. So this is just a tremendous. I mean, we could keep going. Like I said, this is the biggest year for movies.
I mean, big year also for Catherine Zeta-Jones between Entrapment and The Haunting, which I saw repeatedly on pay-per-view.
I definitely watched Owen Wilson get decapitated repeatedly. That's a great scene. Just everything. American Pie, did you see that in the theater? We talked about it briefly, but
yeah, I saw that in theater. I saw most of the summer movies in the theater except for The Sixth Sense, because I was like, I just like, sometimes when like things are like too popular, I don't want to see it right away.
Mm-hmm. Sure. So, I understand that. I understand that vibe. Like I said, so we're going. So that's the top. We go into the Oscars. As it turns out, it was they called it, and it even, they kind of, an Inside Oscar talk about it, very wide open year. Now, as a person who was living through it, I didn't get that sense. But
no, like back then, I mean, at this point, I was 14, and like I didn't get that sense at all. It was always American Beauty.
Same, but according to Inside Oscar, it was more wide open than maybe.
But like the way it was because no one had an egregious amount of nominations. Like the nominations were tightly bunched, and I think that's why they thought it was. But it was like American Beauty was winning Best Picture everywhere.
So American Beauty led the way with 8 nominations. The Cider House Rules. So it's again DreamWorks. That was the big thing, was DreamWorks versus Miramax. So the year before, obviously, which we've talked about, Saving Private Ryan, DreamWorks lost to Shakespeare in Love from Miramax.
And
So
there's a quote in Inside Oscar 2 from one of the DreamWorks flags who's like, "We learned our lesson from last year after American Beauty won the Globe. It's like, we're not going to take anything for granted."
Correct. So they went ham on American Beauty. So American Beauty was 8 nominations. Cider House Rules 7. Insider with 7 from Disney, and Sixth Sense with 6 from Disney. Talented Mr. Ripley 5, which was a co-production with Miramax, I think in Paramount, maybe. And then The Green Mile with 4, Matrix with 4, Topsy Turvy with 4, Being John Malkovich, Magnolia, Sleepy Hollow, and Star Wars with 3. And then Anne and the King, Boys Don't Cry, End of the Affair, Music of My Heart, and Sweet and Low Down with 2. That was how it went in. American Beauty won 5 Oscars. Like you said, while the Inside Oscar says that it was maybe a wide open race, it was, by the time the Oscars rolled around, it was such a fait accompli that Billy in his monologue suggested that it could go 8 for 8 in Oscar wins. That did not happen because it lost 3 key races. But it wins 5. Matrix wins 4. Cider House Rules and Topsy Turvy with 2. So this is the 72nd Oscars. Takes place Sunday, March 26th, year 2000.
Yeah, they had moved to Sunday by this point, and also half an hour earlier to 8:30.
Half an hour earlier, which is great because at the time this was the longest Oscars ever. It was 4 hours and 9 minutes, 7 minutes longer than the year
Just
before.
wait 2 years.
And it was a new producers. It was who was it? Daryl
The Xanax.
The Xanax, right?
Yes.
They replaced Gil Case.
Lily, yeah.
Richard and Lily Xanax, right? They replaced
Gil Cates not returning, but the Xanax corralled Billy Crystal.
They did. And then, like as Billy said, everyone wanted me to come back, and they were asking and asking. They got him back, and I think the interesting thing is I actually noticed as we were watching it, when I was watching it, I wonder if you did as well. It felt like a different producer. It was definitely the vibe was different. The way they staged things were different. They had an announcer on stage, Peter Coyote.
Yeah. He also did the red carpet announcements. Yeah. So
he did the carpet announcements, and it was like a lot more streamlined.
It is. I don't have a lot of quotes from this one. I was kind of sad.
No, none.
Literally all of everything he said was just like the person's name, like no offensive qualifier.
None.
Or like weird qualifier.
Oh, I found one offensive qualifier, Joyce.
The Salma one?
No, it was I wrote it down. Oscar winner Roberto Benigni.
The only 2 I wrote down were star of the upcoming Rules of Engagement, Samuel L. Jackson. Talking
with Hollywood's favorite columnist, Army Archer.
Yeah. And then beautiful Salma Hayek and Ed Norton.
Yeah. And Ed Norton you can't even see.
Yeah. So he pointed out the couples.
He did.
Like Nicole Kidman and Tom Cruise. But yeah, most of his intros were just Oscar nominee name, Oscar winner name, whatever. Yeah. And
then, so they have Billy come out, and Billy actually does, instead of a monologue, he actually starts with it. It's a wonderful night for Oscar.
It's Oscar. Actually, like everything about the red carpet intros and his monologue is so brief that it's in one video. It is. Because usually the red carpet video is by itself.
Yes. I really like the way they did it, because Billy then, it felt like when we last saw Billy, or at least when we last checked in with Billy, he had done a preview. When did he do? He did I got to go back. I had it open, then I lost it already. How many times? When did he host?
You mean like
the years he hosted? Hang on, because I'm like, we had him. So
like,
we did.
You mean like when we watched the ceremonies?
Well, we did it all half-ass. But he did. Obviously, 1990 we have not actually done. We didn't do his 90s show because it was the 89 movies. But he was there 91, 92, 93. The 93 one was pretty rough, right? And then the 97 Oscars was English Patient, I believe. So that year he was fine. 98 was Titanic, and then he comes back for 2000. So when we last checked in with Billy, it was 93 for us. This is confusing. It's like trying to.
I know, that's why I was like, "What are you asking?" You mean
this is like trying to. This is like trying to. This is like trying to parse Yellow Jackets. I feel like we're in the writers' room of Yellow Jackets.
We should check Reddit. So
93, when he hosted in 93, it was really rough. We both said that was like a big nadir for Billy, I felt. But anyway, he comes back. So this is like his 3rd time in 4 years, basically. And he is fine. But I think the fact that the reason it's better than the previous time he had done like a bunch in a row is that it's not as much Billy. It's like he's doing his song, he tells a couple of jokes. It's not like just like a monologue and then a song. You know, the way it's like produced, I think is a little more interesting, I guess would be my point.
I thought like the show itself, even though it's so long, like it was, I felt like everything about it, like even the production design, like I remember watching it live being like, wow, this is a great set.
So
And I love
really
the way
great.
they, whenever they introduce some presenters and if they have won an Oscar, they show their winning moment on the screen. Like that was great.
That was awesome. They used a big screen for AV. They had like James Coburn coming out to present Best Supporting Actress, and it's him winning last year. Or like
Yeah,
Steven
same thing with
Spielberg.
Judi Dench. And I always remember this when Judi Dench comes out to present, they play this awesome kick-ass remix of the Shakespeare in Love theme.
And that was actually in the thing. I don't know if I screenshotted it for myself or not, but it was like they were like Inside Oscar pretty dismissive of Bill Conti. I think they call him like second tier hack composer. I'm like, the guy did like Rocky theme basically. So like, let's pump the brakes on the denigrations.
It was great. I was like,
but they put a new.
I was like, can I get this on Napster? You know,
they put a new. It's Burt Bacharach, I think, and like somebody else. I forget who it is. Let me see if it's on the Oscars page. Maybe let's see. I think it was.
It was like multiple people. It wasn't.
Yeah, Don Was, Burt Bacharach, Rob Schrock, and Don Was were the three music arrangers, and they talked about how this is the first time they were having like a DJ in the little orchestra pit. That's why it's like a lot of like hyped up remixes, basically, like you were saying, like the Shakespeare in Love theme. That was cool. The other thing they did that I think they still do now is a lot more handheld cameras and like swooping around the presenters and stuff, which I feel like is a hallmark of this current Oscars telecasts or Oscars casts as we remember. So Billy comes out, he does the songs Green Acres for Green Mile, People Who See Dead People for The Sixth Sense from Funny Girl, The Minute Waltz for Insider, that was pretty impressive performance by Billy if you're watching it, Mame for Cider House Rules, just to Caine. By that point, the entire life of Cider House Rules had just been down to Michael Caine. That's it. Nobody cared about the movie, it seemed, anymore. It's just like, Michael Caine, we love him.
The movie, I mean, I like the score from the movie too.
We talked about that, the score rules. We talked about offline, but Rachel Portman's score is amazing. And then American Beauty, that's why the Oscar, this movie is a champ, I think is what he says or something. It's like he's already like, this is going to win all the Oscars. Why are we here? We have 4 hours to kill just to get American Beauty all these Oscars. Yeah, totally fine. Billy, I didn't really write down anything down. He did one thing he said, this is how you know it's from year 2000. It's Regis's Night Off. Because at the time,
Yeah.
Joyce,
Yes, I know. I watched that show too.
was the most popular person on ABC thanks to Who Wants to Be a Millionaire.
Well, he also referenced, because this is the year when 55 Oscar statuettes were stolen.
Yes.
So a lot of references to that. And the man who found them, they obviously invited him to the Oscars, so he was there.
So the man they invited, I have his name here. Hang on. It was, let me see. I have his name right here and I already lost it. Hold on. This is scintillating. Willie Fulgier, who was, quote, an unemployed junk scavenger, alerted the LAPD that he had found 52 Oscar statuettes while rummaging through a dumpster behind a Food for Less near Koreatown in California, in LA. So he gets the Oscars back. They invite him to the ceremony. They give him a $50,000 reward. And I think they're going to send him to the ceremony and not in a stretch limo. And he asked for a stretch limo that I think Access Hollywood ended up providing for him. But here's at the end of Inside Oscar, Joyce. This made me sad. They talk about how the 6 months after this Oscar ceremony, a couple of tragedies happened. One,
yeah, very sad.
Richard Farnsworth dies by suicide. He's the oldest Best Actor nominee here for Straight Story, was very ill and died. So that's sad. And then the story of the missing Oscars, hang on, let me see. And Willie reported that he returned from vacation to find that thieves had stolen the safe in which he had put the $50,000 he got for returning the Oscars for safekeeping. Quote, I didn't get a chance to even enjoy my money, he said. They took the safe, they took some of my movies, my VCR, and they just messed everything up. So sad end to the missing Oscars. But at the time, no one knew that was going to happen. And there's Willie Fulgier in the crowd with Jack and Keanu Reeves and every famous person in the world.
They should have given him a front row seat.
They should have given him more than $50,000, PS. Because, I mean, what is it, $1,000 an Oscar?
$50,000?
$1,000 an Oscar? That's got to be worth more.
Not even. It was 55 missing ones.
So we'll do here. So like we said, not a lot in the ceremony itself. I mean, or at least Billy, but we'll do the Best Picture nominees American Beauty wins. No kidding. The other nominees are The Green Mile, Insider, Cider House Rules, and The Sixth Sense.
It's American Beauty, and then 4 other titles with the article in front of them.
Yes, the definitive article.
Mhm.
Before we do the American Beauty and whether it should win or not, I have some notes on the nominees. Certainly Green Mile should not be in there, I would say. And at the time, I think that was a miss.
I feel like The Talented Mr. Ripley was 6th.
I thought The Matrix might be 6.
I don't know if they would have not. I think like The Matrix would be nominated now, not just because it's an expanded field, but I don't know back then if they would have done for that, even though, they nominated The Fugitive 6 years prior.
Right. So here are the 5 I came up with in addition to that, if we're not replacing Green Mile and we're doing a full 10. So I had Matrix and Mr. Ripley. Certainly I felt like we're right there. I had Being John Malkovich, I think was a strong like 7 or 8, honestly, based on the nominations it received and the way they seem to really enjoy it. It got a Best Director nomination for Spike Jonze, which is like kind of unheard of, especially with the list of directors available to nominate, I think, for this year. So that would be 5. That was 6, 7, 8. I threw Topsy Turvy in. Won 2 Oscars. Very well respected from Mike Leigh. I think people really liked it, seemingly, though it's not as like a buzzy of a title as like Three Kings or Fight Club or any of the ones we were talking about. And then I put the last one I put in was Blair Witch, because I just think it was an absolute phenomenon that people don't remember how much of a phenomenon it was. And I think if it was now, it would definitely have gotten in. So that's my 10.
Yeah, like I also think even like Toy Story 2 could get in an expanded lineup. Yeah. I don't know if they would put in both The Matrix and the Blair Witch Project, because they already have The Sixth Sense in there.
Right. So I thought that, but I was like, I think the Blair Witch actually transcends. It's like, I think Matrix and Sixth Sense are clear like blockbuster movies. I think Blair Witch has enough like indie, like grassroots kind of thing, even though it was a monster success, that it kind of outweighs it's not like a studio movie. You know what I mean? Like Sixth Sense and Matrix are like blockbuster fugitive type movies. Blair Witch, I feel like, is more like a 1996 nominee, like a English Patient-y type. I would put it in there, like the Year of the Independence type. You froze.
Maybe, I don't know. Maybe it's just my bias, because like I don't really care about Blair Witch, and like but like, is it actually a good movie, or is people just kind of like fascinated by?
I think it is a
the
good
horror
movie.
element of it.
I think it is a good movie because it actually fools you into thinking it's real. Like it was, people really thought it was real. I know that's silly to say now, but it was like, this is like a real thing. What would you put in there? What would your 10 be?
Being John Malkovich, Talented Mr. Ripley. Like I wouldn't personally put Toy Story 2 in there, but I think it could get in there. And in a 10, yeah, Matrix. What is that? Is that 4?
That's 4, and then you have one more.
I put in as my wild card Notting Hill.
Nice. Mm-hmm. That's not bad. So we left off the other ones. I thought actually could be in, and then the other 4 here, obviously are not a shot. Sweet and Low Down is a Woody Allen movie that had 2 acting nominations. I don't even think, even before Woody Allen was canceled, I don't think this is a very good movie. I just never was that into it, but I could see it maybe getting in a field of 10 at the time. And then I said Eyes Wide Shut, Fight Club, and Magnolia, though none of them would have had any shot, I don't think.
No. I think it was like Magnolia. Not that it was like, I mean, they know who like PTA is at this point, but I don't know if they were ready to give him the big nominations yet. Also,
he was complete enfant terrible, I think is the phrase at the time. There's a great, so Magnolia, this is like, he does Boogie Nights and Magnolia. There's a great documentary that was on the DVD of Magnolia that is now uploaded to YouTube, so you can actually find it. I don't know if we talked about this or whatever, but he is just the most, like, no one has ever been as high strung nor cared about anything as much as Paul Thomas Anderson cared about making Magnolia. And he is like unhinged in this video. He's so particular, and so like, it's just like everything has to be right. He's like basically willing himself to make like a magnum opus, basically. So he really cared, and he's nominated here for screenplay. And when he loses, he's like pissed. It's like fake
it's
pissed,
great
but
because at this point he's also with Fiona Apple,
Yes.
and then she's like, "Can we just get out of here?"
Yes, I did scan. Let me see if I have that in here. We'll see. Joyce, I made the mistake of screenshotting too many.
This is what happens when you read. You discover so many things, and you want to
Reading is so much fun. I didn't even screenshot this fucking thing, but it was basically like she was like kind of consoling him, and like they were just like, "Get out of here. You're both narcissists and terrible." But whatever. So American Beauty wins. With this list of nominees at the time, I think it makes complete sense. No doubt that it would win. If you were doing it now, I assume you would say The Insider.
In a field of 5 now.
Yeah, the same list of nominees right now, I think Insider would win.
Yeah. I don't even think Insider was runner-up back then.
Just no, Cider House Rules was.
Yeah, because Cider House Rules is the only movie of these 4 losers that actually won anything.
So if in Inside Oscar, they talk about this, basically The Insider was a Disney movie that people really didn't like. And like 60 Minutes was mad about because it doesn't basically paint 60 Minutes in the greatest light. And Michael Eisner was also not a fan. So it kind of like, it got in, but Disney just was like, cut it loose. They let it, like, just fully cut it loose. And so it didn't really put a lot of campaigning behind it. And it just kind of existed there as a nominee. So I don't think it had any shot. Cider House Rules was Miramax, and they pushed it really hard. They pushed the pro-choice narrative that it had as well, because
there's
an
an
doctor.
Quote. Is that one of the ones you screenshot?
Yeah, I did actually, about Cider House Rules. Yeah.
Yeah, and like the pro-choice and pro-life aspect.
So it's actually like, again, a movie I haven't watched in 100 years.
So timely now.
Stephen Hunter complained in the Washington Post. Think about, I mean, this is just a different time. So Stephen Hunter did complain in the Washington Post. The movie is pure pro-choice agitprop as it tracks Homer's conversion to the cause of choice and posits the heroism of the abortionist. Pro-lifers will hate it on that point alone, and they should be forewarned. But then I think, I forget who it was, maybe.
It says, well, yeah, on the contrary, Amy Taubin of The Village Voice found the Cider House Rules to be, quote, as paternalistic, puffed up, and dull as a congressional debate about abortion rights, end quote. Yes. Griping also that it was, quote, being passed off as a film in support of a woman's right to choose, but its implicit position is that abortion is wrong, except in cases of rape or incest. Worse still, it makes men the arbiters of what happens to a woman's body, and the abortion debate a defining factor of manhood. The mind boggles at the plethora of patriarchal assumptions, end quote. Amy
Taubin, just on fire, no notes. That's a great, and going out on a limb.
Like share this quote again right now.
We could. I think going out on a limb as well, because at the time, I don't think that was probably a popular opinion on the movie. So good for her. So Cider House Rules definitely would have been the runner-up. I think somebody was in Inside Oscar was saying maybe Sixth Sense would have been a good choice. I love the Sixth Sense. I actually
as the Best Picture winner?
Well, as like an alternate, like would that have been the second choice beyond Cider House Rules? Again, I don't think Disney put a lot into it, and they didn't really care to because it made all its money and it was like a blockbuster hit. And by the time the Oscars were on, it was just like, hey, great. Sixth Sense feels like the ghost of this nominees.
Wow. How long did it take for you to come up with that one?
Pretty long. How long have we been recording this? An hour already? So American Beauty, Joyce. At the time, it was one of my favorite movies of all time. Absolutely loved it. I thought it was so funny.
I liked it. Yeah, I liked it a lot when I saw it, but a lot of my friends were obsessed with it. And I feel like it's just, it kind of, like people can be so pretentious about it, like the people who love that movie. And one of my friends was, and now like I can talk about this because now she freely admits that she was insufferable talking about this movie. And this is even like pre like all the Kevin Spacey stuff, but she was like obsessed with the bag and she just thought it was so deep and moving. I'm like, okay, sure. I'm like, it's a satire and like I like it, but she went like way overboard that she would talk about the movie every single day.
I remember, so what I loved about it, and even watching it again last night, I actually at the time thought it was hilarious. Like I think he is like, it's a really funny performance. Mm-hmm. And I think the thing I liked about it at the time, and the thing I liked about Office Space at the time, is that I was just about to graduate college and I was already disillusioned with the idea of having to go to work for like the man, right? Or whatever it is. And so watching like grown men revert back to like their teenage life is like very compelling.
And also, a lot of movies this year also capture that Y2K angst as well. And obviously,
a lot of angst.
Life crisis element. Yeah.
And a lot of like, it's in Fight Club, obviously, like a generation of men who are just like kind of lost, right? Like, even though that's a satire too. But watching it now as an adult, more of an, I mean, I was like 20, 21 when I first saw it. So like you could argue that's an adult, but I would say like 21 and over is an adult, whatever. And then watching it last night as like a 43-year-old man who is somehow 1 year older than Kevin Spacey is at the start of the movie, which I had a hard time wrapping my head
so
around.
Weird.
Very strange. He's 42 in the movie. I was like, oh man, this guy really sucks. And like all the stuff I liked at the time, it's like placed completely differently now as an adult who is just like, this, what are you doing here, dude? So like, I feel like it definitely doesn't work. And I think that's why a lot of the critics,
like funny. A lot of, even with the Spacey element out of it in recent years, yes, that's how a lot of the backlash to it has started.
Correct. And I think that makes sense. So I think it was a movie actually made for like repressed adults who are voting for Oscars and like 20-year-old kids who think Kevin Spacey is fun from Saturday Night Live. That's and that's also why you have so many young actors in it as well, all of whom are amazing. And watching it again last night, I was like, wow, they're really, really good. Like putting aside the fraught nature of the movie.
BAFTA went hard for them. I think they nominated Thora and Wes.
I think Wes and Thora should have got nominated. They're really remarkable. I just think they're so good.
BAFTA. Oh my God, that's too many tabs. Yeah, so BAFTA nominated Wes Bentley and Mina Savari and Thora Birch. So they
honestly, no notes. I would maybe do the same thing. But yeah, Insider I think would probably win now.
Yeah, I mean, I would have voted for it back then of those 5 anyway.
Right. And then director we can do, because we always do that here as well. The director nominees match the picture nominees for Spike Jonze. So Sam Mendes, he wins for American Beauty. It's his debut feature. What a way to start. He was a staged director, basically, gets plucked to do American Beauty, cozies up to Steven Spielberg, and then the rest is history. Lasse Hallström for Cider House Rules, Spike Jonze for Malkovich, Michael Mann for The Insider, M. Night Shyamalan for Sixth Sense.
No Frank Darabont again.
No Frank Darabont again, and no way should he even nominated, but I had him obviously as like an alternate. The other people I had as alternates were the Wachowskis for The Matrix. It had so many tech nominations. I think they probably could have gotten in here.
So the thing why I don't know if the Matrix would have gone to Best Picture back then, like let's say replacing The Sixth Sense, is that clearly its support was below the line. Like I feel like maybe even, I don't think like the Wachowskis were close to a Best Director nomination, but maybe it could have gone Screenplay.
Yeah.
You know, like I don't think it had enough widespread support to get into Best Picture.
Right. And then Minghella for Talented Mr. Ripley feels like a no-brainer that he should have been in here. But again, it's a tough 5 to knock out. I think now if you're doing it, like Lasse Hallström, I would boot. You know, no offense to the Lasse Hallström hive. And
Lasse Hallström, you just hate because you have not seen his other film, What's Eating Gilbert Grape. So.
No, or The Shipping News. But I did see Cider House Rules in the theater, so... Spike Jonze for Malkovich. I mean, there's so many directors here we could have talked, like we said, like Paul Thomas Anderson, Stanley Kubrick, like a posthumous nomination for Eyes Wide Shut. I'm surprised, honestly, they didn't do it. Frankly,
I don't think a lot of people are huge fans of that movie. So
I think in hindsight they are, but at the time it definitely did not respond. Fincher for Fight Club, Alexander Payne for Election, Mike Leigh for Topsy Turvy probably was pretty close based on how it performed elsewhere here.
Yeah. But I don't think that they nominated him at BAFTA. I don't think they did.
I don't think so.
So
Mendes wins. I mean, like watching it again last night, it is definitely first time director stuff. And he's openly talked about how he didn't know really what he was doing. And he like relied on Conrad Hall to basically like set up the shots and explain what was happening. And like fully was.
And he had to redo a bunch of scenes that he already shot too.
He redid a whole first week because it was bad.
Yeah.
The other thing that's interesting about the movie, and this was known at the time, because I remember it was like either, I think it was maybe on the initial DVD, there's an entire framing device that they just deleted. And like, basically the movie is like, when the movie opens with Thora Birch being like, we should kill my dad. And it's like, you come back to that scene like later, and it's obviously that she's joking around, but there's a mystery component to the movie the first time you're watching it, where you're like, who killed Lester, right? Like you don't actually know who it is. And then it's obviously the Chris Cooper character, but then there's more of the movie at the end where like they're arrested for his murder, I think, and stuff, and like it ends up being like it's a whole like convoluted like punishment thing. And I don't know if they even get arrested. They might not get convicted or whatever, but that was all just cut out. They like deleted all this stuff in the edit. I think they actually shot some of it and they deleted all in the edit. So it's like very much a movie that was put together in the editing.
The ending of that movie is good.
It's funny, the beginning is amazing and the ending is amazing. And I think
you know what I always say in a movie, you need a great beginning, great ending, and that's what people remember.
It's really good. And then there's like parts in the middle that it's kind of dragging. And also Kevin Spacey's not in it as much as you think. Like he's not like,
no,
it's much more of an ensemble.
It's also funny because at the time, no one ever, I guess because like it is, like Lester dies and it's about his midlife crisis, like no one ever questioned him being a lead, whereas people were like, oh, Annette Bening could go supporting.
She easily could have gone supporting.
Yeah.
And so could have he, but I understand why he's the lead, because whatever. Mendes wins. I guess if I was doing it now, I mean, I would say M. Night. I mean, of all these movies, M. Night Shyamalan does, I think, the most masterful job, because it's just like hard to pull off that kind of movie and have it connect in the way it does. And I think while Michael Mann is great in The Insider and Spike Jonze is doing really fun stuff in Malkovich, I think that's more of a Charlie Kaufman movie than Jones. And so I would put actually Shyamalan in as the winner here. I think he could have won.
Wow.
It's a great direct. It's such a good movie.
I mean, it's definitely his best movie, although I do really like Unbreakable.
I think he's usually good, but I do think this is his best movie.
Yeah. Also, not a lot of people know this, but he did a lot of passes. He was a ghostwriter on She's All That. So
yes, I did know that. It's a good one.
A lot of people discovered it on Twitter a few years ago. Yeah.
Yeah. So best actor choice, Kevin Spacey wins for American Beauty. The nominees were Russell Crowe for The Insider, Richard Farnsworth for Straight Story was the oldest best actor nominee ever, Sean Penn for Sweet and Low Down as like a Django Reinhardt analog, and then Denzel Washington as Reuben Carter. As I found out in reading this Inside Oscar chapter, Denzel was the front runner here for most of the season, and then was derailed by the outcry against Hurricane because of it. Funny.
So obviously, what I remember at the time was I just always assumed that Kevin Spacey would win because American Beauty was winning Best Picture, right? And like I watched the Globes that year, and Denzel won that, but I was also following the controversy with the hurricane, and it never felt like that film was strong enough for him to win Best Actor, like Kevin Spacey just had the stronger film, and it wasn't like people were like, oh, Kevin Spacey sucks in this movie,
Exactly. I found this like maybe not revisionist because it's like written probably close to the time, but not the way I remember it at all. It did not seem like Denzel was anywhere close. I wanted to read one thing to you after the nomination. Just talk about this is aged as well as milk. Kevin Spacey was in Las Vegas making his new movie, Pay It Forward, but he was up bright and early to speak to the media after the nominations. After he talked to the Today Show, host Matt Lauer stated, "Good things sometimes happen to good people, and Kevin Spacey is good people." Wow.
Incredible.
So different time. Yeah, so Kevin Spacey wins. I wrote down other people for this category, obviously. Watching it last night, I understand why he won. Russell Crowe is ascendant, and he wins the following year for Gladiator, so I'm not surprised he didn't win. I think he would have been runner-up instead of Denzel just because the movie was stronger, though, again, that doesn't
and this is honestly of Russell's 3 nominations, this was his best performance.
Right. It's really good
performance. Gladiator is fun. But yeah, he was really good in this, and obviously he was coming off of LA Confidential. So just a great run for Russell Crowe in like 5-year span, really.
Right.
Yeah, but I have Al Pacino for The Insider.
I had Al Pacino too for The Insider. I think he could have gotten nominated. It's a great Pacino performance. And I also had Al Pacino for Any Given Sunday, which is an all-time Pacino performance. Jim Carrey for Man on the Moon obviously was like a factor, but never seemingly serious, and the movie did not take off.
No, he won the Globe. Jim
Carrey was the original Jared Leto going method, right? This is Jim Carrey on Man on the Moon is like Jared Leto on
Except
Suicide Squad.
Jared is already an Oscar winner.
Yes. The two people I wrote down who I actually think should have gotten in somehow, though I don't know where I would have put them. Matt Damon for Mr. Ripley, like you said, it's arguably better than Good Will Hunting. He got in for Good Will Hunting. It's a great performance.
And then he's not nominated in acting again until Invictus.
Right, which is not a good movie or performance. And then Bruce Willis for The Sixth Sense I put in. I think Bruce is going to be, I think we're going to look back, obviously because of the sad, that he is now retired because of his health condition. It's sad that he never, I just think this is a great performance. He should have probably got nominated. It feels like this would have been like a Harrison Ford presumed innocent nomination. I mean, a witness nomination.
Yeah, it's like he is good in it. I do have him. I have both of them. I mean, I would definitely put Matt Damon in. I don't know if I would put Bruce in, but I guess now, like in retrospect, it's like, oh, he has never been nominated and likely will never be nominated. Sadly.
Right. Unless they do they'll do like an
this would have been like a nice nomination for him. I think he's just kind of, people think of him more as in like the Schwarzenegger realm of just like action star than someone like even Tom Cruise who can do action stuff and also act.
I agree. So Kevin Spacey wins.
He's very funny too.
He's great. I love Bruce Willis.
He's an Emmy winner. Awesome. Yeah.
I mean, if I was knocking people out, I would knock out Sean Penn. I don't think that's an essential Sean Penn performance at all.
No, this nomination felt like, I mean, to be fair, the actors just like Sweet and Lowdown because Amanda Morton also got in. But it was this time that it felt like they were trying to get Sean Penn a win somehow, and they were just like nominating for stuff because he lost for Dead Man Walking, which was a good performance. And then he's gonna get nominated for I Am Sam in 2 years.
Right. So Kevin Spacey wins. He goes up there and he thanks Jack Lemmon, which is also Mendes thanks Billy Wilder. When you watch him watching American Beauty now, it's like, and it's funny again, as a 20-year-old kid, I had not seen The Apartment. I don't think I think the most only Billy Wilder thing I guess I saw was like Some Like It Hot. I think I saw at the time. So it's not like something I was super familiar with. And it's so indebted to that movie. And the performance is such a ripoff of Jack Lemmon that you watch it now and you're just like, this is like almost pantomime at times. You know what I mean? Like, it's like hard to take Spacey seriously because he's doing Jack Lemmon, who he obviously, like, I knew Jack Lemmon from like Glengarry Glen Ross, which is like my touchstone for him at the time. So yeah, it was like, it is funny that he thanks Jack Lemmon. I'm like, the movie is just so derivative of all those old movies. It's like Sunset Boulevard and The Apartment basically mixed together with like, David Lynch kind of, but not really. I don't know. Best actress, Joyce, Hilary Swank wins for Boys Don't Cry. Annette Bening, incredibly pregnant. She would have her baby, her fourth child with Warren Beatty, who was a Thalberg winner at the ceremony. She has that child, I think, a few weeks later. It
was on April 8th, if I'm not mistaken.
So it's like a week later.
Yeah.
There's many, many jokes in this about her giving birth at the ceremony.
Her delicate condition.
And I remember thinking, so this is weird. Again, if you read this Inside Oscar, it wasn't really an upset, but I remember thinking it was at the time.
Oh, really? Did you think Annette was going to win because she won SAG?
I thought she was going to win because she won SAG and because American Beauty was just sweeping. I just thought it would win everything.
I never felt that way because to me, Hilary Swank, if we're going to go back to the Denzel thing, she was clearly a lot stronger of a front runner than Denzel ever was. Like, she dominated critics. Everyone was just like enraptured by this turn. It's a great performance. And it's more of a, not quite Stars Born, but just like her next level, like her rising to a next level. Like, obviously she had Next Karate Kid. I knew her from her 18-episode stint on Beverly Hills 90210. Sure. And she got fired, and then she was able to do this.
Yes.
So, but yeah, to me, like, I never really thought that. I mean, yes, like Annette could win if American Beauty was dominating, but I felt like Hilary could pull it out because it felt like people were just much more in awe of that performance than they were of Annette, who's good in American Beauty as well and would have been a fine winner. And it's kind of sad she is not the winner still and has lost twice to Hilary Swank.
Yes. Maybe we'll do that one. Maybe we'll do $1 Million Baby in our next series of these. But Janet McTeer was a nominee for Tumbleweeds, Julianne Moore for End of the Affair, and Meryl Streep for Music of My Heart. This is a weak category, I'm just going to say.
I mean, like, no one really, no offense to, I mean, Janet, she won the Globe, didn't she?
I think she won at the Globes.
Yeah. Yeah, she won the Comedy Globe. Yeah, no one, they were not, let's say, they were not in the conversation for the win.
And it makes me sad that, like, I don't understand how with that list. I mean, I guess I understand because it's like Meryl's going to get in because she's Meryl and it's like a Miramax movie. But like Reese Witherspoon for Election.
If that movie came out now, starring, I mean, Reese had been acting before Election, obviously. Like, she would get in now.
Do you think she'd win now
against Hilary Swank?
Yeah, I actually think she might.
I don't think she. I mean, we also have to assume that, like, Hilary Swank playing Brandon Tina now in 2022
wouldn't happen.
Yeah,
I don't think it would happen now. So,
but like, I think a Reese Witherspoon Election nomination would happen now, and if Reese were nominated back then, she would not be beating Hilary Swank.
Okay. The other people I wrote down was Julia for Notting Hill. Big year for Julia. Yes. Notting Hill, I think, is a superior movie to Runaway Bride. Nicole Kidman for Eyes Wide Shut, I actually think is a great performance and like against type for her at the time. Paltrow for Talented Mr. Ripley, though maybe supporting.
I have Cate Blanchett in supporting. I mean,
I have Cate in supporting too.
Supporting, I guess. So
right.
If you do like one of them in each category.
So Hilary Swank wins. Joyce famously forgets to thank her husband Chad Lowe. Became a running joke.
Rectifies it 5 years later.
And then they split anyway. Yes. But she said backstage, first of all, I have to say something that I didn't say when I was up there. As you can all imagine, it's very surreal up there. I have got to thank my husband Chad Lowe. Applause from the reporters. Love and unbiased media. And I'm doing it right here because without him, I could never have made it through this experience. So thank you, honey. You're my everything. And then Chad Lowe said, what did he say? Hold on. Did I skip that part? I must have. But he was like, now I get to pick the movies we're going to see for the entire year because he got snubbed by her.
He was like weeping.
And nice moment. Totally fine.
Yeah, I always really like her dress. That's a great Oscar-winning dress.
Yes.
Yeah, even though it's gold and that's kind of cursed now. Remember when Glenn wore gold for the wife?
Yeah.
Yeah. But also the presenter for this category is the then reigning Best Actor winner. Correct. And this is the first thing I honestly think of from the ceremony is when Billy Crystal introduces Roberto Benigni.
Yes.
With Annette, and then he chases him around the stage.
Yes. Here's a quote. I didn't see who said this, but from Inside Oscar. Quote, when Roberto Benigni appeared and everyone remembered that last year he actually won Best Actor, couldn't you feel the entire planet trying to look away and blame someone else?
You know, it's been so long now that they should just release those ballots. And
oh my God, I would love to see that.
The names, like not anonymous ballot, like the names of people who voted that year.
Supporting actor. Potentially an all-time lineup of nominees. Michael Caine says this in his great speech, which I pulled up because I just love it.
Iconic speech.
Michael Caine wins for Cider House Rules. The other nominees were Tom Cruise for Magnolia. Iconic Tom Cruise performance. I think arguably his best performance. Michael Clark Duncan for The Green Mile. Definitely not what you want, I don't think, but it was a breakout performance.
Yeah, breakout performance, R.I.P. Michael Clark Duncan.
Yes. I prefer him in Armageddon, Joyce. Jude Law and Talented Mr. Ripley, just an all-time performance.
Another breakout performance.
Yeah. Breakout. And then Haley Joel Osment for Sixth Sense. So
another breakout performance.
Great lineup. Michael Caine's speech is wonderful. First of all, I was asking you this and I don't even know if you know the answer then. It felt like everything was about Michael Caine winning an Oscar. He had already won for Hannah and Her Sisters. Now he didn't go to that ceremony because he was filming Jaws 4. Yes. And I think he had that famous quote where he's like, I don't remember the Oscars, but I remember the house that Jaws 4 bought me, basically, right? Like something like that. Mm-hmm. So that's great. Good for him. So he's now, at least this is the only time he's ever going to accept a competitive Oscar is right here. Was that enough to get him like he gets a standing ovation? People are like throwing themselves at the stage, so excited that Michael Caine wins an Oscar. I was just like, I don't know. Hannah and Her Sisters wasn't even that long ago. It was 13 years ago.
It's so Tom Cruise won the Globe, which is not surprising really because it's
No.
the Globes, right?
Now he gave that Globe back, if I remember correctly.
He gave all of his Globes back.
Right.
So yeah, it just so and then Michael Caine won the SAG. SAG, I think in its 6th year
Mhm.
now. But it felt like it was more of like a win out of like reverence for him.
Right.
You know what
But
I mean?
it just is strange to me that like he got the treatment that an Al Pacino would get, or like Glenn Close would get now, where it's like we got to finally give this great
And
titan of
he
the
already is an
industry
Oscar winner.
an Oscar, but he already was a winner. It's just very strange. I didn't understand it.
Yeah, I mean it's a good performance in the film.
Yeah.
And yeah, it just felt like they were not, maybe they were not ready to give. I think for the like Michael Clark Duncan, Jude Law, Haley Joel Osment, they might also be too new because we've talked about like how you could be an ingenue if you're a woman
Yes.
and win, you know, early on in your career, but for men you have to wait a little bit longer.
Right. And
To
it
be
would
more
have been
accomplished.
this would have been a great, again, I think when Tom Cruise retires or is not long
Like this
no
is a
longer,
miss.
we're gonna look back and say, wow, he should have won an Oscar for Magnolia, because it's so clearly a spot for him to have won, because Michael Caine already has an Oscar for a movie that's not as well remembered, I don't think, as Magnolia. And for fact is, like, why not Tom Cruise? But Michael Caine's speeches, I just want to read it. You said you watch it all the time. I love it. Watching all the others and thinking back to when I saw the performances, and I was thinking of how the Academy changed the winner is to and the Oscar goes to. And if there ever was a category the Oscar goes to someone without there being a winner, it's this one, because I did not feel like being the winner. You have Michael Clark Duncan, who I'd never heard of, quite frankly, who is astonishing. You have Jude, who's going to be a big star no matter what happens, and then was later in Alfie, right? Remember, I think that's after this. That's fun. You have Tom, who, if you had won this, your pot price would have gone down so fast. Have you any idea what supporting actors get paid? And we only have one motorhome, a small one. And Haley Joel Osment, what an astonishing, where is he? There he is. Haley, when I saw you, I thought, well, that's me out of it. So really, I'm basically up here, guys, to represent you. And as what I hope you will all be, a survivor, which is actually bittersweet, obviously, because Michael Clark Duncan has sadly died. Yeah, great speech.
Yeah, great speech. And he seemed very moved by it. But this lineup could also be better.
So what'd you come up with?
So obviously I have my guy, Christopher Plummer, for The Insider.
So Christopher Plummer for The Insider, I think would have been great. I have a few.
And I feel like maybe if he had been nominated, like maybe he could have won. Because it's like also at that point had not won yet.
Correct.
Obviously. And a legend. So, but yeah, I don't think like they were, maybe it's just compounded by Disney's lack of interest in campaigning for The Insider that he just missed out, and he doesn't get nominated, or his first nomination doesn't come for another 10 years. So yeah.
Right.
I also would do Philip Seymour Hoffman in Magnolia.
So which Philip Seymour Hoffman, though? That's the thing. That's why I think he didn't get in, because he has Magnolia. He's wonderful in. But Talented Mr. Ripley, I think, is just a legendary performance. It is so good.
But I prefer him in Magnolia.
I think he's better in Magnolia, and he actually has more to do in Magnolia. But I think that's an issue is that he probably split his own. I think he could have split himself here a little.
I also feel like the focus for them was Tom.
Yes.
Yeah. And I think maybe also why Tom may have lost is not just them thinking, oh, we'll get him down the road or whatever, but also like, oh, sort of like what Michael Caine says, like, oh, he shouldn't win in supporting.
Right. We talked about this a little.
A-listers winning in supporting all the time. So.
Brad Pitt. We talked about this a little. Wes Bentley for American Beauty. I actually think he should have gotten it. And it's this astonishing performance. It's cliche now, and it's like kind of whatever. Obviously, the movie, like we have said, is cursed. But wow, he's so good in it. It's really, really good performance. I think he's just wonderful. People would never get in that I wrote down. Brad Pitt for Fight Club, just an all-time performance. Legendary Brad Pitt performance. No notes. And John Malkovich for being John Malkovich.
I think he won one of the Critics Awards.
He did, I think.
Yeah.
But again, hard to argue. I mean, like we would knock Michael Clark Duncan is like the easy out, but I like really like Michael Clark Duncan, and like the movie's not very good, but it is a good performance, and it's like he's comes out of nowhere and is like basically the co-lead of this movie with Tom Hanks.
Yeah.
So, and I don't know.
I think the makeup of this category made it easy for Michael Caine to win.
Yeah, it did. But there you go. Supporting actress, Angelina Jolie wins for Girl Interrupted. First time we're mentioning that movie here. Totally fine movie. She has her moment with her brother that was like heavily memed and like mocked for no reason.
It is so stupid. Like, she loves her brother. Okay.
Even
back then I was like, this is so juvenile to trying to make it more than it is.
It's also when you watch it when she wins, the way it's talked about, you would think they're like fully making out, and it's like she just is like gives him a hug.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, I don't know why was this a thing? Why do people care?
And then she just says, "I love him so much." It's like, yeah, she loves her brother so much. What's wrong with that?
Yeah. Toni Collette for The Sixth Sense, great performance. Catherine Keener for Being John Malkovich. Samantha Morton for Sweet and Low Down, and Chloe Sevigny for Boys Don't Cry. Catherine Keener, the oldest person nominated here at 40. This is all young nominees. Angelina Jolie wins. It was a big breakout movie for her, and like kind of like, again, like this was a no doubt win. It was not a shock at all.
Yeah, she swept.
I didn't really write down a lot of people here, though. I think you could have had Thora Birch, like we said, and Mina Suvari for American Beauty, both in here. Both of them are incredible in the movie. Again, Mina Suvari has a tough role because it just is like, it's just all over the place, but she's really funny and she has like great line readings throughout. And Thora Birch, I think, is so affecting. So if I was going to put them in, I would probably knock Samantha Morton out, and then maybe Toni Collette, sadly, because like
Toni Collette was a surprise. She is good in it, and I'm glad she's an Oscar nominee. Like also for this movie too. So obviously, as we've talked about multiple times before, Cameron Diaz snubbed Being John Malkovich.
Tough beat.
Yeah.
I guess Catherine. I think it was maybe more like, again, like Cameron Diaz should not get an Oscar nomination. Basically, that kind. I think it's biased against her more than
because it's happened multiple times to her, and now she's retired. So unless she comes back, you missed your chance, guys. Cate Blanchett, like I said before, for Talented Mr. Ripley, and then she would never get in, but Allison Janney for Drop Dead Gorgeous.
Wow,
iconic performance. 1999, big year for Allison Janney because she has Drop Dead Gorgeous. She's in 10 Things I Hate About You.
And American Beauty.
American Beauty, obviously, and The West Wing premieres in 99.
Big time for her.
Yeah.
The other person I wrote down was Julianne Moore. Just the hysterical in the true sense of the word performance. I love her so much in it. She's so big. And it's really great. And she has like multiple Oscar clips, I feel like, that they could have run. Angelina Jolie, I gotta say, not a movie I've seen since 1999, Girl Interrupted.
I remember we watched it again at like a sleepover at my friend's house, and it was fine. I just remember it being Winona Ryder's passion project.
Right. And Angelina thanks Winona Ryder in her speech. It's a nice speech.
Yeah.
We usually do screenplays here, Joyce. Original screenplay won. Alan Ball won for American Beauty, seemingly a slam dunk win. Being John Malkovich, nominee for Charlie Kaufman, Magnolia, Paul Thomas Anderson, Sixth Sense, M. Night Shyamalan, Topsy Turvy for Mike Leigh. If I was giving out this now, 100% Sixth Sense should have won, I think, even more so than John Malkovich. And
I think Sixth Sense could win now, although, like American Beauty is the Best Picture winner.
I think it would win now because I think it would be like, they'd be more inclined to do the cooler movie. It's like the Get Out win, even though I wouldn't compare, like, obviously Get Out Social Message versus Sixth Sense is a lot different. I think like it could win here.
But yeah, and this is Alan Ball.
So Alan Ball was a TV writer, and then you watch American Beauty and you're like, yeah, it's a sitcom. That's like, was it, even at the time, that was like the derisive way to describe it. And it is very much like a TV writer movie. And there's one part, I forget who says it. Is it Conrad Hall, or it might be Conrad Hall when he wins and he's like, what a great script by Sam. Oh, it feels like he wrote it.
Oh, no. It was Sam. And was it?
No, or it wasn't Sam because
it was Kevin Spacey. It was Kevin Spacey.
Kevin Spacey in his speech is like, what a great script by Sam. Oh, it feels like he wrote it because like he did change so much, I think, in the editing and all these different things. And like, it was a great win for Alan Ball, obviously. And like, he went on to do 6 Feet Under, which is a beloved show. True Blood. But just it definitely has like television elements to it. And I don't think it would win. I actually think you could argue it's the 5th of the best screenplay in this list.
Yeah, like I could also like Being John Malkovich could also win now.
certainly, and Magnolia could certainly win, especially with like PTA having not won. You know what I mean? Like, just seems like an easy spot. And Topsy Turvy probably for Mike Lee has a good shot.
Well, I mean, they just like nominating him.
The other two I wrote down were like Matrix and Blair Witch, I think could be in here. Like you were saying,
Oh
Matrix,
yeah,
I
like
think
Matrix. Mhm.
certainly would. And then for adapted screenplay, Cider House Rules wins for John Irving, who adapted his own book. The other nominees are Election, Alexander Payne and Jim Taylor, Green Mile for Frank Darabont, The Insider, Eric Roth and Michael Mann, and The Talented Mr. Ripley, Anthony Minghella. A great list of nominees. I would probably give it to Mr. Ripley or The Insider if I was doing it now.
I think back then I would do, and even now, I guess, either Insider or even Election too. I really
Election could win. I think if it was now, it's a cooler movie, so it would win.
Yeah, the Cider House Rules win was like somewhat surprising. Again, Cider House Rules, 2 Oscars this evening. But yeah, this is a good lineup in general.
It's funny that like we said, 99 is such a good year for movies that even though there are probably dozens of movies that have not been nominated here or not even referenced, like the actual nominees are still good. You know what I mean? Like there's not like a lot of fails here.
Yeah,
I would say. I want to do score because you were mentioning it before. Rachel Portman for Cider House Rules, love that score. The winner is John Corigliano for the Red Violin. Can't say I've listened a lot to the Red Violin score. The other nominees are Thomas Newman for American Beauty, which is an iconic score, completely iconic, recognizable with an instant. I feel like even now today, I think people would still recognize it. John Williams for Angela's Ashes, which is just like a Meryl Music of My Heart nomination. Nobody remembers this score. No offense to John Williams or Angela's Ashes. Just he's there because he's John Williams. Cider House Rules for Rachel Portman and Gabriel Yared for Talented Mr. Ripley. A lot of stuff missing, I would say. Among them, the Matrix score, which we hear 4 times during the show. Just an awesome score. The other one I would have put in for John Williams is the Phantom Menace, because like we were saying, the Duel of the Fates, which is like the key track from Phantom Menace, which again is like in trailers and everything, is like his arguably like one of his best cues. Not nominating here for this score. I think that's strange. And Rachel Portman should have won for Cider House Rules.
Yeah, I mean, you could also have done double Thomas Newman because he also did the Green Mile, and that was good.
I guess it was good, but I'm like, it's not very memorable to me. I mean, I think I'm surprised that Thomas Newman did not win for American Beauty. This is one of those places it lost.
He still hasn't won.
So I could only imagine it lost. I was trying to think about this. So it was going to go, Billy, like I said, suggested 8 for 8. It lost Best Actress to Hilary Swank. Like we said, that wasn't necessarily the biggest upset because she was like the critical favorite. It lost editing to The Matrix, which is somewhat surprising, I think, at the time.
But also a cool choice.
Cool choice, similar to like Girl with the Dragon Tattoo winning, I feel like. And then this, it lost to Red Violin. I can only imagine that American Beauty and Cider House Rules split the vote and that it was pretty evenly matched and Red Violin won with like, because of that. That would be my guess.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm just looking at all of his other nominations right now. And I mean, obviously he lost for Shawshank.
What did he lose that year to?
So that year he had a double nomination because he also had Little Woman. But like you wouldn't, that year was Lion King. So he wasn't winning that. And then he had Unstrung Heroes, which like no, and that was when it was split in comedy, musical, or drama. So then he has American Beauty, Road to Perdition, Finding Nemo, Lemony Snicket's A Series of Unfortunate Events, The Good German, WALL-E, which is really good, and then he has a song nomination also for WALL-E, Skyfall, Saving Mr. Banks, Bridge of Spies, the iconic film Passengers, and then finally 1917.
Should have won for American Beauty. I think that's where he gets his win. But Red Violin wins. And then the song, Joyce, You'll Be in My Heart from Tarzan wins. Phil Collins is an Oscar winner. The other nominees were Blame Canada from South Park, music and lyrics by Trey Parker and Mark Shaman. It was a big to-do of how they were going to do this at the Oscars. Robin Williams does it. It's an iconic show-stopping performance. Just loved it so much. Music of My Heart from Music of My Heart, another Diane Warren loss. Save Me from Magnolia by Amy Mann, I think is the best song here. And then When She Loved Me from Toy Story by Randy Newman. Here is Trey Parker after the Oscars, talking about Phil Collins. He told Entertainment Weekly, quote, "I was just so fucking angry losing to Phil Collins. Fuck him. It sucks. It sucks. I could have lost to Amy Mann and been like, okay, that's cool. She's cool. My grandkids are going to be like, fuck you, Grandpa. You lost to Phil Collins."
Also, you could see a baby Lily Collins in the audience clapping for Phil Collins.
Aw.
Yeah. So
pretty great.
Yeah, I don't know. At this time, they would have given it to Blame Canada. Like, I think it could win now.
I think it could win now, though. I don't know. I think Save Me might win now.
Maybe. I mean, we know Diane's not winning, so sorry.
No, we don't. She doesn't need to win. She's got her honorary Oscar. It's fine.
She's gonna keep on her piano.
So that's basically it. I mean, we're kind of like that too. Like I said, the show is 4 hours, 10 minutes, very long show. We're wrapped up here, Joyce. So we're done with the 90s. We did it. I was saying, I texted you last night. Do you want to rank the best picture winners of the 90s? My list is chaos.
Of course it is.
Let's start with 10. You want to go from 10 to 1? We could each do our 10s.
10 to 1.
So my 10 is Braveheart.
Yes, mine would be 2.
Not a good movie.
My 9 would be Dances with Wolves.
Same. My 9 is Dances with Wolves too. My 8 is English Patient.
Whenever I rank stuff, I always have trouble with like 7, 8, like that area I just don't really care about.
Yeah.
I'm trying to decide between English Patient and Forrest Gump.
So
probably I'll do English Patient too, because I have seen Forrest Gump more than
I put Forrest Gump 7.
Yes, so I do Forrest Gump 7.
So we have the same bottom 4. Here's just like we said, Braveheart and Dance with Wolves. If you've been watching any of these, not a fan of those. And English Patient is perfectly adequate 3-star Oscar bait.
Do not
Forrest
revisit
Gump,
it. Yeah,
I've seen 100 times. It's completely problematic and pretty dumb, but it's still more entertaining to watch than those other 3. Number 6 for me is Unforgiven.
Okay. 6 for me would actually be Titanic.
Wow. Okay.
It's not like I enjoy it fine, but I'm trying to think about the last time I saw it, and like I don't remember it really. So you know what? This is one of the few movies I saw multiple times in the theater.
Yes.
But yeah, I'm never like, oh, let me watch Titanic, or I really love Titanic. So
we'll revisit Titanic on my list much later. So what was your 6?
That was my 6, Titanic.
Oh, Titanic. Yeah. Duh. Wow. 5, I have American Beauty.
5, I would do American Beauty.
And then 4, I have Schindler's List.
4, I would do Unforgiven.
Okay. And 3, I have Shakespeare in Love.
Yeah. I'm trying to wait, what else is left? Because I know my number 1.
So I think we have the same number 1. My number 1 is Silence of the Lambs.
Yeah.
My number 2 is Titanic.
But what else do I have?
You're
left?
Missing.
Oh, Schindler's List. So yeah, I would do Schindler's List. What are we on? 3?
3.
I would do Schindler's List 3, Shakespeare in Love 2, and Silence of the Lambs 1.
So we all did the same one, but I went Titanic too. Titanic is good. I watched it.
I'm picking the movie that beat my favorite movie for number 2. So
wow. Not a bad list.
That movie a lot, so
not a bad list. Not a bad run of the decade, I'd say.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think if you were doing this 10 years ago or 15 years ago, like you'd be like, wow, that's a great list of movies. I think time has been unkind to American Beauty and Forrest Gump.
Yeah.
And I think the others have actually stayed okay. Like Shakespeare in Love, I think Shakespeare in Love still has a solid reputation. Silence of the Lambs obviously is unimpeachable. Such a great movie.
Yeah, and then these other, I mean, Braveheart, even though I don't care for, it's still highly memed. Obviously Mel Gibson factor, whatever. Yeah,
sure.
I know. canceled, but that speech, people still quote it.
Yeah, it's at sporting events. It's a meme when it's like at sporting events.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and like English Patient, again, like a very handsome movie.
Totally fine.
Yeah.
It feels like. That's it, Joyce. So that's it. We've gone through the 90s. What have we learned? That the Oscars were here's my takeaway was the Oscars were much better in the 90s than they are now.
They were. Yeah. And they also cared less about catering to the masses.
Yes.
Even though you have the quote from the ABC executive, but that's still ABC, not like the Oscar people.
Right.
Being like, we need to give Phantom Menace 1 billion nominations to get people to watch again, even though we just went down to 45 million viewers.
Right.
So low.
So now we'll come back, Joyce, and we're gonna have to figure out what we want to do next. I think we should do some early 2000 ceremonies.
So I would just say right now that I do not want to do the 2010s because that's too recent.
I agree.
Emotions are still too high, too raw, and it's only fun when you have a lot of distance, like we do from the 90s, to look back on stuff like this.
So we could do either the 90s or we could go into the 80s, but I think the 80s winners are not as exciting, personally.
Best Picture winners, it's a lot of like epics.
And I like the idea of the 90s was great because we had the modern. I feel like it's like the modern Oscar broadcast because Billy kind of ushered that in. We could do the Billy 90 ceremony, I guess.
You want to do Driving Miss Daisy?
Yeah, we could do like a bonus episode of the 90s for that, and then we can maybe think of like I really want to just do the Departed year. I love that year. It's a lot of fun, and I think we could do $1 Million Baby because Annette lost again
to Hilary Swank.
Yeah, so maybe we'll do those two, and I think we could do the Driving Miss Daisy one because a lot of notes on that. A lot of notes on those winners. Let's say
another Tom Cruise loss.
Right, maybe he could have won. The Danny Day-Lewis one. I don't know. We'll see. Joyce, this is so much fun. We've gone way too long. It's longer than Belfast, certainly. So talk to you later. Bye.